What we also find is in the common parlance and language of many people who study fiqh and the books of Islamic jurisprudence, the moment the word jihad is used, it is used to mean qital or harb. It is used to mean fighting. It's used to mean combative form of jihad. Why? And if you look for a book on Islamic jurisprudence, there's books on, there's the section on, there are all these other sections on prayer and tahara and purification and marriage and finance, Islamic finance and sales and business. But you will always find also in many of the books, Kitabu Jihad, the section on jihad. And when you start looking in, you find most of the discussion is about warfare. How did the word jihad, which is used with diverse meanings in the Quran, diverse meanings in the Sunnah, have a more narrowed specific meaning when it comes to the books of Islamic law, the books of Islamic jurisprudence?
No, as I mentioned before, different scholars belong to different fields of Islamic sciences, and their usage of the same term can differ depending on their own context. So even the word sunnah would be viewed differently by scholars of hadith and scholars of Sirah, for example, because of how they consider it. So when it comes to the word jihad, for the jurist, for the faqih, it has a lot of implications. And so at this time, they are not usually concerned about the jihad of bin nafs and striving in other ways and dutifulness to parents and all of that. But they are concerned about the military form of jihad because of its relationship with state and political and legal structures, because there are rulings relating to jihad, and anything that has to do with rulings and do's and don'ts, then we know that we're in the area of fiqh, and there are scholars who are specialists on this. So when these scholars are talking about jihad, they are being concerned about the jihad that is relevant to their own field, which is the military form of jihad that has laws and is related to politics and leadership and followership and all of this. So the concern of these jurists is that jihad, the general and other broad forms of jihad is something that everybody can participate in, does not have a lot of regulations, and you do not need anybody's permission to be kind to a widow, to take care of an orphan, or to take care of your parents. So there is no need for a lot of discussion on that area. But when it comes to the military form of jihad, this is something that could put the entire community in jeopardy if not done properly. This is something that could lead to the loss of life of innocent people, destruction of properties, that could lead to the breakdown of peace and security, all of which are contrary to the objectives of the Sharia. So the concern of these jurists is with the laws around the justification for jihad. Before we can talk of jihad, that is fi sabilillah. It has to be justified in the first place. So is this word justified? What are those conditions that must be in place before this kind of jihad is justified? And then when the jihad is justified, what about the conduct? So the faqih are also interested in the conduct of war. What do we do while fighting? Who do we fight? Who do we kill? What do we not do? How do we start? How do we stop? And when do we stop? When do we cease fire? All of these have rulings and regulations guiding them. And also the issue of the termination of warfare. And of course, what comes thereafter? How should the booty be divided? How should the prisoners of war be treated? And what should happen to them? Who has authority over all of this decision making? What about the issues of war crimes? So these are things that have political implications, that have legal implications, that also have, for some people, spiritual implications in terms of if someone kills somebody unjustly, for example, there are things that they have to do because it's not proper. So it's just about realizing that the issue of jihad, especially when it comes to the military form of jihad, is one that is taken seriously, one that is seriously regulated, and one that is not something that anybody can just dabble into and start doing without ensuring that they are staying true to the letter and the spirit of the Sharia.
Thank you. Jamil, what do you add?
I will quickly say this. All the books of jurisprudence, let's say in the Fiqh of Maliki, let's say Risala, where you have different sections. All of it from beginning to the end is, you can also call the entire book Kitabu Jihad. Because everything that they have taught in that book, like the book of marriage, the book of transaction, the book on zakat, the book on purification, all of these are forms of jihad. So giving that specific chapter, Kitabu Jihad or Babu Jihad, a chapter of jihad, it's just like Sister Halima said, to bring out some rules. Because that, like I said, the objective is to repel aggression and to free oppressors from their oppressors from those who oppress them. So if you don't have rules governing that, then people go do it, and then the end will not be good because there is no how you do it. So how you do it is as important as what you get at the end. So that's why that happens. So it is not about they have constrained jihad to only mean fighting, but they are giving that chapter to let it look that, okay, this, if jihad now takes the meaning of fight or warfare, then that's just war, then this is what and what and what and what and what are required. So the other books, the other chapters are also jihad, because everything about a believer from beginning to the end, all his life is about struggling to attain Allah's rahmah and Allah's mercy, and that's a form of jihad. So that's very important. It is also very important that they are not denying, like before with what I was saying, they are not denying that jihad has broader sense, but they are constraining this because of what it means. And if you look at ahadith that talked about jihad and qital as well, apart from this one that I've mentioned, if you go to specific, you will see Prophet ﷺ speaking on, if you are in the warfare, you don't kill this, you don't do this, don't do this. Okay, then this put together are also important, and they could form Kitabu Jihad, but that does not mean that, and you know, these things have to come. Like Prophet ﷺ, towards the end of his life, after migration, of course, the persecution continued, even after leaving the persecutors' land, which was also their own land, but they have to leave it for their persecutors, and they followed them. Then Allah now said, it is not permitted for those who have been wronged to take defense, to retaliate and then take defense. And then, of course, in doing that, then they have to be some of these rules. So that's, again, one thing. We should also know that jihad, that means warfare, has a time that it's in place and a time that it's not there. But these ones are unending. The broader meaning is unending. You continue to pray until the day you breathe your last. You continue to fast as long as you are able, without any sickness or any difficulty that will not make you fast. So, but qital, of course, is specific for a period. So you also need to have all of these things clearly stated, and that's why you have like a chapter, or once they mention jihad, people's mind goes to that, because if you say jihad and you didn't specify, then the scholars of jurisprudence, okay, this is what it means. But if you go, then you now know every other thing is jihad. And these terminologies have been used in the books of fiqh. Like in Risala, you will see Babu Zakat al-Ain, chapter on the, let's translate it, chapter on the zakat of eye, because al-ain means eye in Arabic. So chapter on the zakat of eye. So okay, if you have two, maybe at the end of the year, Nur will give one of his eyes as zakat. No, but if you know, zakat al-ain means zakat of wealth, liquid cash. So
what you can see.
Yes. So you now say this is liquid raw cash wealth that you have as liquid cash. Now, if you now say, okay, in the Risala there is the chapter on the zakat of I, because it says Ain. So Al-Ain here does not mean I. So jihad here does not only restrict itself to what is it called, warfare or just war, but it's just trying to give some specifications. So I think it's good that we know that some of these concepts, and like Sister Halima said, most of these scholars, they have different specializations, so with different usage. If you hear this here, it may mean something else there.
So basically you're saying, because the scholars of fiqh take their technical meaning of jihad, that's the scholars dealing with law and jurisprudence, their technical meaning of jihad to be just warfare.
Yes.
And, you know, when discussing that, that's what they are talking about. They are not denying that it has other meanings in the Quran. They're not denying it doesn't have variety of meanings or the concept would be applied. It's just that in their subject matter, this is the technical meaning they give. And I think, as Halima also mentioned, you find the way the word sunnah is used depends on the field. For scholars of ulumul Quran, when you say kitab was sunnah, it's understood kitab means the Quran and sunnah means hadith. In Islamic jurisprudence, when you talk about sunnah, you are talking about a source of law. Yeah, a source of law. Yeah. But in fiqh, when you say sunnah, you say this is a sunnah prayer. You mean it is not wajib. You know, you're saying it is recommended. It's a nafila. It's mustahab. It's good to do, but it's not compulsory. And so you could find, and somebody would just say sunnah just means the tradition of the Prophet, just how he did his things, what he said, what he did, what he approved of, and all of that.
That you can get from with the scholars of hadith.
That you will get from those, exactly. In other words, the word sunnah depends on which field, what they mean by it. The word jihad depends on which field, what they mean by it. Which takes me to another question, Brother Jamil. Looking at the diversity of forms of jihad that have been considered good or that a Muslim is expected to be involved in, as you said, there's no ending jihad. A Muslim's life is all about struggling, surrender, submission, striving to submit to the will of God, to stay good. So you never graduate from that. It's a never-ending daily struggle, a daily jihad to stay on the straight path, to be ethical and live a virtuous life. Looking at all the diversity, particularly from the Quran and the Sunnah, and how the word is used for various purposes, how would you respond to the question of what is the best form of jihad that I should be involved in?
The best is all the jihad. All jihad in its meaning are best. There is no single one that is best, because why am I saying that? You will not get what is best for me, perhaps being best for you, and that which is best for you might not be best for Sister Halima. So it depends on who is involved, what is the context, what is the situation, what is even available at that time to do the jihad with, or what is the cause for what is that thing that has led to the jihad itself.
What's the problem?
Yes, what's the problem? So here you don't have that one single one. Say this one has like super advantage over all other ones. It depends on who is involved, what is involved, what problem are you trying to solve, and what is the context. So therefore, let us get this clearly, because Prophet ﷺ in different, like we have in this discussion, we have mentioned, he said the best jihad for that man who came and said, I want to go to warfare. I said, yeah, your parents, and I said, it's okay, irje fafihi ma fajahid. Go back. In them you find your jihad.
Serving parents was the best for him.
For him at that time, instead of going with them to warfare. So you would not belittle serving parent compared to going to the just war, because of course you have seen Prophet ﷺ send somebody back to not to go for this or go for the other one. and like that. So it all depends on who is involved and what is involved. Like if you have, so what, and the basic thing that we should also have is your intention, the purity of intention. Also, that's the purity of the objective or why you're doing it. Why are you doing it is also very, very important. And maybe your lineage, your profession, your qualification, I mean what you know how to do best. For instance, as a father, if that's your role, then your jihad might be a bit different from the mother. As the mother, your jihad might be a bit different from the child. If you are a daughter or a son, again like that, depending on who you are and what you are. And again, also, even your profession. The jihad that a scholar will do will be different from the jihad of a student. The jihad of a medical doctor will be different from the jihad of a mechanic. The jihad of a mechanic will be different from the jihad of a farmer. So all of these depend, like I said, on the Prophet. That's why Prophet has mentioned a lot of it. Like if you are a journalist, I would say, like in this context where you have a lot of things surrounding leadership, not doing the writing, if you can use your pen to write, or you can come on the screen or on the radio or on the social media or whatever means you use in communicating the masses, then come out to say the truth about what it is and what it is not about the leadership. That is a form of jihad that is the best for you. You may not have the money to assist the poor and the needy. The person who is wealthy, assisting poor and the needy and taking care of orphans is the best jihad, like Sister Halima quoted this Prophet on that. That person who is a student, your devotion to studies is your form of jihad. In fact, Prophet said, خَيْرُكُمْ مَنْ تَعَلَّمَ الْقُرْآنَ وَعَلَّمَهُ. The best of you is a person who learned study the Quran and also teach it. So a teacher of Quran, teaching Quran is your best jihad. You will find just one thing that is best for everybody. You will have to take it case by case.
Context by context.
Context by context. Of course, if there is no hostility anywhere coming against you anywhere, then there is no need taking arm and ammunition to fight. But when you have a hostility, or hostile neighbor, or hostile community that is oppressing you, and it becomes unbearable that you cannot, then you need to defend yourself. Then at that time, those of you who can, obeying all the rules, engage in it, then that's the best form of your jihad at that time. So there is no one that you will say this is the best. The best is the one that suits the context at that time, and of course with clear objective and intention of you doing it to better the lot of the humanity, because that is what Allah wants. If you don't do it, even if you do it like you write and you are only writing to impress, then because Prophet ﷺ said 3 persons who will struggle in the course of on the day of Qiyamah, they will come and Allah will disgrace them that you never did it for me, so it is not for me, and it's not jihad. Yes, one is somebody who is wealthy and spending his money, assisting people, assisting orphans and the rest. And on the day of Qiyamah, Allah He will ask him, why did you spend it? He said, no, I spent it fi sabilillah. He said, you are a liar. You spent it so that you will say you are a juhud, you are somebody who is giving, who is a very, very good giver. And they really said, oh, that person is very benevolent. They said it, and that is the end of your reward. The second person is a scholar, an alim, who devoted his time teaching day in, day out, day and night. But the intention was not because of Allah. It was just for him to, that guy, very good scholar. And he is always ready to teach people. But Allah will ask him, if he says, no, it's a lie. You did that so that you'll be called a good scholar and you were called, that's the end. The last is the one who even engaged in warfare. There was a need for it, and you engaged yourself in it, and you went and fought. In fact, even maybe got killed. Then you say, why did you do this? I didn't say, no, you did so that you that guy is very strong man, a hero. And really they said you are a hero. So that's the end. So you can see that even if you are taking what is the best form, then you should also know that it's not just what that you're doing, but even why you're doing it is important. Wallahu alam.
So you've touched on this question of the motive.
Yes.
That as you brought a hadith of a person, the Quran the Prophet ﷺ tells us the best of you are those who learn the Quran and teach it. And yet, the Prophet ﷺ tells us about a case of a person who did learn the Quran and taught it and still ended up in hell.
Yes.
Because his motive was not to do it for Allah's purpose. His purpose was to become popular and be known as a scholar. We have hadith where the Prophet ﷺ and the Quran again and again talks about people who are giving, wajahidu fi sabilillahi bi amwalikum, you strive with your wealth. And that may be the most important jihad for somebody who has wealth to spend. But yet, as you said, a person is not appreciated by Allah because the motive was to be known as a philanthropist. The purpose was not.
In fact, one that came to mind quickly now and is important that people do not even take as something. Prophet ﷺ was asked when Abu Huraira asked, which of the givings, alms giving, charity is better? Is it for me to take my money and if they are preparing for warfare to buy weapons for Muslims to go and defend themselves? Or for me to have my money, build a mosque or build a school or one center that will be for Islamic propagation? Or for me to take my money and go to the market, go to grocery shops, buy all that is buyable, bring them home, which is better? Prophet ﷺ said they want the money that you use and entered into the market and bought the needs, things that your family need and brought home, is better than giving for going to warfare, is better than building a mosque or building even an Islamic center. So you can see that if you want to rate it, going to fight for, building a mosque or Islamic center, and the one I just went and bought a chicken and came home and slaughtered it, and myself and the children and the entire family eats. This is the best. So you can see as a family man, your best jihad in this context will be to provide for your family.
Your responsibilities.
Yes.
Especially if they are in need.
Yes, he said, khairukum li ahli. The best of you is the best that is the best of his family. And wa ana khairukum li ahli. And I'm the best in terms of taking care of the family. Muhammad sallallahu is the best. So you can see. So it's not about this. Just came to mind. I think it's in the context.
This is excellent
because of the issue of this jihad of even the warfare in the hadith. There is jihad of struggling to build Islamic center, promotion of Islam, and then the jihad of taking care of your family. But he said the one taking care of your family is better than the other two.
So even though all these forms of jihad are good,
yes,
which is the priority for a person depends on that person.
Yes.
And both from the person spending fi sabilillah, that is his own form of jihad, the person who has to go and fight to defend, but is just doing it so that people say he's a hero, he's brave, but that is not acceptable by Allah, because you should do it for the selfless purpose of justice, that is fi sabilillah, and respecting the rules of combat, that is fi sabilillah, if you happen to, if that's the priority. This whole issue of making sure that the particular form of jihad, so saving lives, you may be a doctor, you may be in the security services, you may be in the fire services, you may be in whichever area is your area of competence. The Prophet ﷺ said, the best among you are those who are most useful. And the need for us to ask ourselves, where can I be most useful as a person, looking at my gifts, but also looking at my context, my responsibilities. The question of fi sabilillah, Sister Halima, how central is that to this question of the best form of jihad?
I think it's related to what you have been talking about, and the issue of motive, the issue of the heart, as very important in determining what is really fi sabilillah. And this does not apply only to these other forms of jihad. It applies to the military form of jihad. It also applies to the non-military form of jihad. We are also reminded of the hadith of the Prophet where he told us, innamal a'mal binniyat. So all actions shall be judged according to the intentions behind them. So even when we really have to go on a military jihad, what is the motive behind it? And also to realize that while a battle or a form of military jihad may be a just war, so it fulfilled all the condition of why people should fight. They are fighting in defense against aggression and oppression. It is called by a leader and it is done systematically. But it is very possible that amongst the people engaging in that jihad, some would be rewarded and some would be punished. Mm-hmm. So even though it is a just jihad as a whole, the individual heart is also important. So while the jihad itself as a whole has fulfilled all righteousness, as the individual fulfilled all righteousness in their participation within the jihad. And just to see that jihad at the individual level, even when it is occurring in a group, is very important. I also recall the case of Ali, the son-in-law of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who was, of course, with the others, including the Prophet, peace be upon him, in a particular jihad. So this was a just war, all conditions fulfilled. And then Ali was in combat with a particular person from the other side, one of the enemies, and he had subdued him. And just as he was about to strike him, the man spat on his face. And of course, as is natural for a lot of people, Ali was very angry. And as he became angry, he just released the man. And the man was shocked. He was surprised. Like, it was at that moment that people would say, just say your last prayer or have your last breath.
You are finished.
That was his expectation. Like, it's over. And then he wondered why. Like, his sword was already out of his hand. Ali had gained upper power over him. So he asked him, why didn't you kill me? And then Ali said, I was fighting fi sabilillah, for the sake of Allah, and I was about to kill you fi sabilillah as a combatant in war. But at that time when you spat on my face, I became angry. And if I had killed you, it would be out of my own anger at what you had done to me. So it would no longer... So even during the war, if one is not careful, the intention could change. And it just shows the level of consciousness and the way the companions of the Prophet understood what jihad and what jihad fi sabilillah means. That Ali left that man. And the man was so moved by that level of consciousness that he ended up accepting Islam eventually. So, just to realize that whichever form of jihad we are engaged in, that the purification of the heart is paramount, that the motive is very paramount, that our intention is very important, and that we are conscious of the way the intention changes. And we've also had the case of the companion who went in jihad and died a martyr. And unfortunately, the Prophet told the people that he would end up in hell because along the line, even though he started well, but unfortunately for him, along the line, he had been injured and he was in so much pain, and he decided to end his own life himself. So we see that it is possible that people start well, but do not end well. And so it is very important that in any form of jihad, this does not apply just in military forms. Even in non-military forms, you are helping people, you are giving sadaqah, you are teaching people, that we are conscious of our intention in the beginning, in the middle, and at the end of it.
Interesting.
Let me just add one scenario, because Sister Lima mentioned somebody who killed himself after being injured in the jihad. Okay, in this, the hadith I'm trying to quote is a hadith of a companion who was fighting, but he had a different motive. Yes. The intention was, yes, I'm going there to fight, but of course I know at the end, if we are victorious, we will have booties. We'll have booty, so he wants to get part of the booty, because part of the Sharia of Islam, those who participate are going to be given a certain share of the booty. And he went, and of course the Muslims were already gaining victory. They are overpowering the enemies, and he began to steal away some of the things. So, and eventually he got killed by an enemy. Then everybody among the companions were like, Alhamdulillah, a martyr. Everybody was saying, no, he fought very fiercely and he got killed. Martyr, he's going to paradise. Well, Salam said, no, I saw him in hell. Why? He said, fi abahatin kalla, because he stole a cloth of an enemy that was supposed to be a beauty. He stole it even before it belonged
to the state. Yeah.
So that material was the property of the state, and he stole a state property because he had that as part of his intention to go and gain booty. So let me start gaining even before my shares are given, and that sent him out of all the benevolence and the mercy that he would have enjoyed. So it's not just okay to say let me go, because some people, I'm saying this because people today use jihad and even not even on just cause, but you see people when there is little crisis, little violence, people start saying Allah Akbar, jihad, and they will go break into people's shop, buckle their shop in the name of jihad. Of course, this is clear stealing. No. This is clear stealing. This is not part of what Islam teaches. So even if we are going to do like Sister Lima and all of us have said, there are rules and regulations that must be observed before we are able to attain that greatness that we think we'll get in any form of jihad at all.
This is interesting and excellent. You know, the point you are touching back to the hadith, actions are judged by the intentions. In other words, the action may look good, but the motive is more unethical. It's more selfish. And what Allah looks at is what's in your heart. So it's easy for us to judge the outside, but Allah judges it differently. You touched on the issue of martyrdom, which is what a person who dies in jihad is described as having attained the position of a shaheed. But it's also interesting when you look at who did the Prophet consider a shaheed? Who did the Prophet classify as having attained martyrdom? In one hadith, he says that the honest business person would wake up side by side with the shuhada, with those who were martyrs who died in battle. In another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, a mother who dies in childbirth dies the death of a shahida, a person who's a martyr. A person who is able to hold on to faith through an illness and still dies, whether it is, a lung disease or cancer, somebody who has been able to hold on to their faith through an illness that was terminal. The Prophet ﷺ described this person as having died the death of a shaheed. This person is a martyr, even though this person wasn't on the battlefield.
One who dies under a collapsed building.
One who dies under a collapsed building. One who dies after having gone through the pain of fire, from burning. We call scholars, we call Shaheed Hassan al-Banna. Even though some of these scholars were not involved in fighting, they were involved in educating people and speaking truth to power, and yet there's that understanding that they have reached that high rank of having lived their life fi sabilillah and died on that cause. So what's important is not just how you die, but living in what way and what was the condition of your heart, what were your motives. I'd like to thank you all for that discussion, inshallah. Until next time, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.